Thank you for joining us today, sir. My first question is, how does Hindustan Unilever integrate sustainability in its overall operations?
For the last maybe 10 decades, we've been talking about making sustainable living a commonplace. For Hindustan Unilever, we talk about what is good for India is good for HUL. And that being the core of our entire belief system, we've always looked at making products which empower consumers and also help them have a better life. Our sustainability goals have four pillars, which is climate, nature, plastics, and livelihoods. And the way they're integrated is we have something called the onion, where we look at our operations, what we can do to reduce our entire footprint, become more responsible in the way we conduct our operations. The second is in the value chain, which is working with our suppliers and the rest of the ecosystem. And the third is making products or our brands which become very purpose led. So each one has a purpose or a sustainability objective attached to it, and also carries a very strong purpose led messaging for all the consumers. And the last one is, of course, working beyond all these three with our communities. And that is how we look at sustainability in a complete integrated manner.
That's very interesting, sir. I think following the answer that you've just given, I think I have another question, that is, from your experience having worked with organizations like Hindustan Unilever, how do you think businesses like HUL balance economic growth with long-term ecological stewardship? So what you're talking about is more of what is happening on ground every day, but what about a long-term goal? How do organizations work in tandem to ensure that ecological stewardship is maintained?
If you look at our sustainability goals, we talk about climate, nature, plastics, and livelihoods, which I was telling you. And if you look at the IPCC 1.5 degrees target, the current decade is the most important to address. So organizations like ours completely understand the need for urgency, focus, and the actions which are responsible to deliver on those targets. The net zero ambition, we've got an ambition to be net zero by 2039. That can happen only through very strong actions on working with the supplier ecosystem. That will give us one of the biggest wins. Working on reformulating our products as well as our packaging. And of course, the third one will be forest risk communities. All three will be one of the largest impacts to help us fight climate change.
In the long term, right?
In the long term, of course. And plastics on a 2030 ambition, it's important that there is less plastic, no plastic, and better plastic. I mean, three of it, which needs to start happen. We also partner at an advocacy level, working with the governments, like the project Mission Life, where we try telling consumers, the use of products which they don't need. I mean, not getting into using products which they don't need, bringing down the demand for such products, and of course the supply ceases, and of course working with the government to have a better policy. So these are the ways we look at all the aspects within climate, plastics, and of course nature. How do we source products sustainably? How do we work on regenerative agriculture, bringing in better efficiency of water? We've got water potential collectively of 3.2 trillion done by all our work in CSR with our communities. So that's the way we're looking at long-term ambitions and mitigating climate change.
That's quite helpful and quite interesting, and I hope that your organization and many others are able to achieve such goals in the long haul. My next question is, what role do corporate led initiatives and partnerships play in creating scalable and impactful solutions? Now, especially for regions like the Eastern Himalayas, which are not much talked about, do you have a perspective on how corporate plays a critical role in helping preserve ecosystems that are quite niche, probably not as much talked about either?
For all critical ecosystems and as well as critical topics, one of the most important things is dialogue. If you look at the problems of the world, like empowerment and social issues, there has been dialogue. But in the area of sustainability, there have always been sustainable communities which were living there. Then the world became more modern, sustainability took a back seat, and today there is a need for urgent action. And in other cases, dialogue is followed by action. But here, action should have happened yesterday. And that is where corporates like us needs to come together to create dialogue, action, and of course, a whole lot of collaboration and convergence.
Absolutely, right.
So that's exactly the place for large corporates or leaders like us who can catalyze the ecosystem to bring in partners who can deliver change on ground, create more responsible consumerism, responsible engagement, mindfulness. So that's why if you look at our plastic programs, we start with consumer education on segregating waste at source. Then we also work on inclusion of the waste workers, and then investing in recycling infrastructure. So that's the entire spectrum which is needed today, and if we can catalyze it at a scale where we can bring in partners. So that's the way we look at water at a basin level, regenerative agriculture, bringing together a whole lot of corporates which can come together on creating water use efficiency, better output and yield of crop, and of course, climate action in all the spaces in terms of low GHG or deforestation-free products. So we're looking at how we can work with a larger ecosystem to create change, and that's what corporates like us can do it.
Great advice. I'm sure the ones who are listening will pay heed and plunge to action soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.